Imagine for just a second that you are standing in front of a crowd.
Oh.
You have been preparing for this specific moment for months, maybe even years.
Right.
You are at the absolute climax of your speech, delivering what you honestly believe is a profoundly unifying, statesman-like message.
To the big finish.
Exactly. You hit that final, powerful note, you pause, you wait for the resounding applause to just wash over you, and instead,
Silence.
dead, awkward, agonizing silence. We're talking about the exact same energy as a waiting room at the DMV.
Oh, well.
You could hear a pin drop. It is the kind of quiet that actually physically hurts to experience. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Our mission today is to dissect the anatomy of an infamous, viral political phrase, just two little words. And we are using a comprehensive Wikipedia article as our sole source material.
Just 2 words.
Yep. We're going to explore how the phrase, "please clap," came to completely encapsulate an entire presidential campaign and how it signified a massive permanent shift in modern political communication.
And just to be clear for everyone listening, as we look at this viral moment today, we are acting purely as historians of the internet and political culture.
Right. Very important point.
Because the source material we are examining contains politically charged content involving both left-wing and right-wing figures. We are looking strictly at the text. We are not taking any political sides.
None at all.
And we are certainly not endorsing any viewpoints, strategies, or candidates. We are just unpacking the facts, the context, and the anatomy of a meme exactly as they are laid out in the original source material.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to set the stage to understand how a highly seasoned, incredibly well-funded politician finds himself basically begging a room for validation.
It is quite the journey.
Let's go back to early 2016. The political landscape is heating up, and we're focusing on Republican candidate Jeb Bush.
Right.
So on paper, this guy had the ultimate political resume, right? I mean, he was the 43rd governor of Florida. He is the brother of a former president, the son of another former president. He formally launched his campaign on June 14th, 2015.
The pedigree was definitely there.
Right. So how does a candidate with that kind of resume end up polling at a dismal 3% by the end of 2015?
It really comes down to a massive disconnect between the candidate's brand and the mood of the electorate. The source outlines a really grim struggle from the very beginning.
Yeah, grim's a good word for it.
Despite his extensive record as a governor, which, by the way, he was constantly trying to emphasize on the trail Bush, was widely seen as the ultimate embodiment of the Republican establishment.
And that wasn't playing well at the time?
Not at all. You have to remember the historical weight of the Bush dynasty. In previous decades, that name was a golden ticket. But in the specific political climate of 2015 and 2016, that legacy became very heavy baggage.
It was almost a liability.
Exactly. He was the safe, traditional pick in a year when the base was actively rebelling against safe and traditional. He struggled immensely to find a distinct message that separated him from the rest of a very crowded pack.
And it wasn't just an internal messaging problem, was it?
No, not at all.
Because the source mentions he was actively being defined by his opponents. Specifically, Donald Trump, who tagged him with the nickname Low Energy.
Yes.
That label felt like it just immediately cemented itself into the culture.
It did, and it was incredibly damaging.
Mm-hmm.
Trump's low-energy attack worked because it provided a very simple, mocking lens through which voters began to view Bush's every move.
So confirmation bias, basically.
Precisely. If Bush gave a thoughtful, measured answer on policy, it wasn't seen as intellectual. It was framed as low energy. It put his campaign completely on the defensive.
It's so hard to shake a label like that.
And the contrast between his vast resources and his actual popularity was glaring. Keep in mind, this was a campaign with massive financial backing.
Oh, right, the money.
One of the references in our source text points to an article literally titled, "Inside Jeb Bush's $150 million failure."
Wow, $150 million.
So you had this towering pile of donor money, all of the establishment backing in the world, and yet total freefall on the polls.
$150 million, and you are polling at 3%. That is a staggering contrast. Which really brings us to the breaking point.
The timeline here is crucial.
Right. The timeline is really important for setting up the psychology of the famous incident. Tell us about February 1st, 2016.
What's fascinating here is the immediate pressure cooker context right before the moment we are going to dissect. On February 1st, 2016, literally just one day before the famous, quote, "the Iowa caucuses" took place,
And for anyone who doesn't obsess over campaign cycles, the Iowa caucuses are that critical first temperature check for a presidential run. It is where you prove you actually have boots on the ground and voters who care.
Precisely. And in that critical first test, Jeb Bush placed sixth.
Ouch. Sixth?
He captured a mere 2.8% of the vote.
Coming in sixth in Iowa isn't just a bad night. It is a donor panicking disaster.
I can imagine the phone calls the next morning.
So when we look at the events of the very next day, you have to realize that Bush wasn't just out there giving another routine stump speech. He was fighting for his political life. He had everything to lose at that point.
He was desperate to prove to the voters, to the media, and perhaps to his own panicked campaign staff that his softer-spoken, traditional style of politics could still resonate.
Yeah, he was trying to hold the line.
Exactly. He was walking into a political arena that was becoming increasingly loud and aggressive, and he was trying to maintain that traditional decorum.
Which takes us to February 2, 2016. The setting is a town hall event at the Hanover Inn Hotel in Hanover, New Hampshire.
Okay, picture the room.
Right, picture it. It is a hotel conference space. Bush is up there, fresh off a humiliating defeat in Iowa just hours prior, and he is making a concerted effort to draw a very sharp, deliberate contrast between himself and the brash candidates in the race.
Specifically Donald Trump.
Yes, specifically Trump. He wants to show that his low energy is actually a quiet presidential strength. He is building up to this defining statement. I'm going to read his exact quote from the source because the wording is so intentional.
Let's hear it.
Bush says to the crowd, "I will not trash talk. I will not be a divider-in-chief or an agitator-in-chief.
Yeah.
I won't be out there blowharding, talking a big game without backing it up."
Notice the language there. Blowharding. Agitator-in-chief.
Yeah, very specific choices.
He is directly subtweeting the louder populism that is taking over the primary without actually using any names. He is pitching a return to normalcy.
Right, and then he brings it home with the big vision. He continues, "I think the next president needs to be a lot quieter, but send a signal that we're prepared to act in the national security interests of this country to get back in the business of creating a more peaceful world."
A very classic line.
Now stop right there. Historically, hasn't that kind of measured rhetoric actually worked? Think about past presidents who campaigned on being the steady hand at the wheel. Why did it bomb so spectacularly in this specific room?
Because the implicit contract between the politician and the audience had fundamentally changed, and Bush hadn't realized it yet.
He missed the shift.
He delivered what in 1996 or 2000 would have been a classic, traditional political applause line. He hits the crescendo. He delivers his sweeping vision for a peaceful world. He pauses for the inevitable wave of adulation.
And he gets absolutely nothing.
Just a wall of silence.
The source explicitly notes the silence from the crowd. He was expecting applause, and instead, the room just stares back at him.
Painful.
Imagine his PR team watching this from the back of the room. He delivers this dramatic vision for world peace, and the room gives him absolutely nothing. And into that agonizing void, Bush utters two words that would instantly become immortal. "Please clap."
The contrast between the gravity of his speech talking about global national security and the quiet, almost tragic desperation of "please clap" is stark.
Tragic is exactly what it felt like.
It is arguably one of the most painfully human moments ever captured on a modern campaign trail. And what happens next is a perfect case study in the futility of political damage control.
Oh, the spin on this was incredible. You cannot spin this, but they tried.
They absolutely tried. The immediate aftermath involved a massive effort by the campaign to completely change the narrative.
I can't wait for this.
Bush's spokeswoman, Christy Campbell, spoke to BuzzFeed News and claimed that the media had entirely mischaracterized the event.
Of course they did.
Her argument was that "please clap" wasn't a desperate plea at all, but rather a charming moment between the candidate and the voters.
Wait, a charming moment. Have you ever seen a desperate plea for validation look charming?
Not once.
The gap between a campaign's internal PR spin and actual public perception is always funny, but this is on another level.
It really is.
When a moment goes incredibly viral, specifically because it feels deeply uncomfortable and pathetic, telling the public that it was actual endearing is never going to work.
It is the political equivalent of telling someone not to look down. The media, of course, did not find it charming. They had an absolute field day with it.
Oh, I'm sure.
"Please clap" was instantly and widely ridiculed across the political spectrum. It didn't just make the evening news. It became the defining emblem of a floundering campaign.
Blood in the water. The source gives us some brutal postmortem assessments from major outlets that really capture the mood.
What do they say?
MSNBC wrote that the moment will be remembered as an unfortunate and yet quintessential phrase around the Bush campaign.
Quintessential. Wow.
Right. Think about that word. Quintessential.
Right.
They weren't saying this was a weird fluke. They were saying this awkward, unreciprocated plea was the pure essence of his entire run.
And the New Republic didn't hold back either. They called it a succinct encapsulation of a flailing presidential campaign.
Succinct encapsulation.
When esteemed publications are using words like that, the narrative is entirely out of the candidate's hands. It became the universal shorthand for the end of the road.
And the road ended very shortly after that, didn't it?
It did. Bush officially suspended his campaign on February 20, just a little over 2 weeks after the incident at the Hanover Inn.
That was bad.
The impact of that moment lingered heavily over all the postmortems of his campaign. Vox published a piece detailing the 17 saddest moments from Jeb Bush's campaign, and naturally, Please Clap was a centerpiece of that list.
Naturally.
It was the definitive punctuation mark on a campaign that simply could not connect with the modern electorate.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. A failed campaign usually just fades into the history books.
True.
People forget the gaffes, they forget the town halls. But Please Clap didn't fade. It achieved total internet immortality.
It became bigger than the campaign.
Our source details how the phrase took on a life of its own long after February 2016. By December of that year, the publication Inverse actually named Please Clap as one of the best political memes of 2016.
Best meme of the year.
Yeah. It morphed into this deeply ironic pro-Bush internet meme.
The visual component of that meme culture is fascinating, too. People began pairing the phrase Please Clap with Jeb.
Oh, right, the logo.
And for context, Jeb, with a very enthusiastic exclamation point, was the official branding of his ill-fated campaign.
The irony is almost too perfect. You have this logo screaming Jeb with an exclamation point, representing a candidate who is fundamentally opposed to exclamation points in his actual demeanor, having to verbally ask a room to please clap for him.
Exactly. The exclamation point promised high energy, and the reality delivered a plea for basic acknowledgement.
What a contrast.
And the phrase's longevity is remarkable. It didn't stop in 2016. Years later, in March 2019, Vanity Fair published an article about Bush encouraging a Republican to challenge Donald Trump in the 2020 primary.
And the headline.
The headline they chose was a direct reference to the Please Clap moment. It became permanently attached to his name, much like Howard Dean's scream in 2004, but with a totally different emotional resonance.
It's wild to think about. A single awkward silence in a small hotel conference room fundamentally changed the blueprint for how we remember this massive political figure.
It did.
But it's more than just a funny internet joke, isn't it? There is a real sociological shift happening here.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it becomes clear that this meme was carrying a massive amount of cultural weight.
Right.
The source references a brilliant analysis by Brian Contreras from the Los Angeles Times.
What did he find?
Contreras wrote that the enduring internet memes of the Jeb Bush campaign weren't just about poking fun at a single awkward moment of a politician failing. They reflected a much broader mocking of a softer-spoken, more cautious conservatism.
That is the core of it right there.
It is. That specific brand of traditional policy-heavy politics, the kind that relies on white papers and quiet dignity, suddenly had, as Contreras put it, less and less to offer voters in an increasingly polarized America.
The audience had moved on.
The meme survived because it symbolized the exact fracture point, where the old rules of political decorum simply stopped working. Internet culture and the 24-hour news cycle had effectively shortened voter attention spans, turning town halls into reality television.
They wanted entertainment.
The electorate wanted a show. They wanted gladiators. And Bush was standing in the arena, politely asking for a round of applause.
Which perfectly illustrates why a meme from 2016 still matters today. You had this traditional expectation of how a town hall should go.
Right, the old way?
The candidate speaks, the audience respectfully claps, and that collided head-on with a new era of high-octane performative politics where the audience demands to be entertained, not just spoken to.
It was a paradigm shift.
And because that shift in voter expectation was permanent, the please clap phenomenon didn't just stay with Jeb Bush. It became a contagion.
It became a universal syndrome across the entire political spectrum.
Yeah, nobody was safe.
Please Clap has officially entered the political lexicon as the shorthand for any candidate, regardless of their party affiliation, who fails to garner enthusiasm from a crowd.
It's the ultimate burn.
When a politician expects a cheer and gets silence, The ghost of the Hanover Inn is instantly invoked by the media and the internet.
And the Wikipedia article gives us two very specific, very uncomfortable examples of this happening on the Democratic side of the aisle in the very next election cycle.
Let's hear them.
Let's look at April 22, 2019. Democratic candidate Amy Klobuchar is at a CNN televised town hall. She is up there touting her electoral record, which is objectively impressive.
Very impressive record.
Right. She is pointing out how she had won every single congressional district in Minnesota in each of her Senate elections. That is a solid traditional resume point.
Absolutely.
She finishes the point, expecting that wave of validation, and the room gives her absolutely nothing, just crickets.
Oh, no.
So she has to actually encourage a reaction, telling the crowd, "It's when you guys are supposed to cheer, okay?"
Which is just a slightly more conversational version of please clap.
Exactly. It's the exact same energy. And then, fast forward to January 21st, 2020.
Another one.
Pete Buttigieg is speaking at a campaign event in Iowa. He finishes a thought, the audience is entirely unenthusiastic, and he is left urging them to cheer or clap with a very awkward, "Come on."
Just come on. It is the exact same dynamic.
This raises an important question about the modern political arena. When you look at Klobuchar in 2019 and Buttigieg in 2020, you see the same mechanic at play that ruined Bush in 2016.
The rules apply to everyone now.
There is now a relentless demand for constant, immediate audience validation. The moment there is a lapse in that validation, the internet instantly brands it as a please clap moment.
And that changes everything.
It changes the way politicians are forced to spook and behave. They can no longer afford to be quiet or subtle. They cannot just deliver a policy point and let it sit in the room.
Because the penalty for a silent room is being turned into a meme of total failure.
Precisely. They have to constantly engineer their speeches, not just for policy transmission, but for guaranteed audible theatrical reactions.
Every sentence needs a punchline or a cheer.
The architecture of a political speech today is entirely built around avoiding dead air. So, what does this all mean? When we look at all the pieces we've just unpacked from this Wikipedia article, we see the complete life cycle of a modern political disaster.
We really do.
We see a moment of genuine vulnerability or perhaps just profound awkwardness from a struggling establishment candidate in a small room in New Hampshire. He was armed with a $150 million war chest and the legacy of 2 presidents, but he was fundamentally unprepared for an audience that had stopped playing by the old rules.
He brought a policy paper to a reality show.
Right, and instead of just being a fleeting mistake, it became a permanent fixture of internet culture. Please clap became a massive warning sign for cautious conservatism and really for any cautious politician in a deeply polarized age.
It's a cautionary tale.
It is a stark reminder that in politics today, the silence of a crowd can speak much louder and cause much more damage than the actual words of the candidate.
And that leaves us with something critical to consider as we close out our analysis. We've seen how a single quiet room was weaponized into a permanent career meme. If our political landscape now instantly punishes a lack of theatrical crowd response, how might the fear the please clap moment be secretly dictating the policies and the rhetoric that today's leaders are willing to propose?
That's a scary thought.
Are we losing nuanced, quieter policy discussions simply because politicians are absolutely terrified of the silence that might follow?
Wow, that is a thought to hold on to the next time you watch a political speech, and notice how aggressively they're fishing for cheers. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. You know, your curiosity is what makes digging into these viral histories so incredibly rewarding. Keep questioning the media you consume, keep looking for the bigger sociological picture behind the memes, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.